The wind on Himalay's rotting slopes cuts like a knife in December. Rani, 17, barefoot in torn rubber slippers, was herding her 3 goats back down the mountain when she saw him, a man in an expensive jacket, half buried in snow, lips already blue. His rented Royal Enfield lay twisted 20 feet away. Tourists don't usually come this high after dark. She should have kept walking. Her grandmother was sick, the firewood was running out, and strangers never helped girls like her. But his fingers twitched. Rani dragged him onto her shawl, tied it like a sled, and pulled him 2 kilometers down to the only thing she owned, a leaking tin shed she called home. For 4 days she melted snow for water, fed him thin dough from her own bowl, and burned the last of her school books to keep him warm. He drifted in and out of fever, murmuring names she didn't recognize as stock prices, board meetings, Aarav over and over. On the 5th morning his eyes finally focused. He stared at the soot-blackened roof, then at the girl with cracked lips and frostbitten toes who was wringing out a rag for his forehead. "What's your name?" he asked, voice hoarse. "Rani," she said, embarrassed because it sounded like a joke next to his obvious wealth. He closed his eyes and whispered, "Thank you, Rani," like he was saying it to a queen. 3 weeks later a helicopter landed in the meadow that had never seen anything louder than goats. Men in suits stepped out, asking for the girl who saved Aarav Malhotra. Rani thought they were police coming to arrest her for stealing the rich man's watch. She'd only taken it off so it wouldn't freeze to his wrist. Instead, Aarav, now clean-shaven, standing without help, walked straight to her, went down on one knee in the mud, and placed an envelope in her trembling hands. Inside, full scholarship to the best school in Delhi, a bank account with enough zeros to make the village head faint, and the deed to a proper brick house already under construction next to her grandmother's charpoy. Rani looked up, tears freezing on her cheeks. "Why?" Aarav smiled, the same way he had when he first woke up in her shed. "Because you saved a life, little queen. Now let the world save yours." Rani stood in the meadow with the envelope clutched to her chest long after the helicopter's roar had faded into the pine-scented silence. The wind still bit her cheeks, but for the first time in 17 years it felt different, like it was blowing toward her instead of against her. The village children circled at a distance, whispering about the big bird that had come for the mountain girl. Her grandmother, wrapped in 3 shawls and leaning on a stick, kept touching the envelope as if it might disappear. That night they didn't light the usual single kerosene lamp to save oil. Grandmother insisted on 2. The yellow glow danced across the new reality neither of them knew how to speak about yet. Rani opened the envelope again and again, tracing the gold-embossed letterhead of the Malhotra Foundation with a fingertip that still had soot under the nail. The scholarship letter was written in both English and Hindi, as though someone had guessed she could read only a little of the first. The house deed had her full name Rani Divya printed in careful block letters, followed by the words absolute owner. She had never owned anything that wasn't patched, borrowed, or half-broken. Sleep refused to come. At 3 a.m. she slipped outside and sat on the flat stone where she used to skin potatoes. The stars were the same stars that had watched her cry when her father sold the last goat to pay for her mother's tuberculosis medicine that never worked. She spoke to them the way only mountain girls do, quietly, fiercely, without expecting an answer. "I didn't save him for this," she whispered. "I just a broken bar, couldn't leave him to freeze." The next morning the first truck arrived, not a helicopter this time, but a plain white Tata with Delhi plates. 2 women stepped out, one in a neat cotton saree, the other in jeans and a puffer jacket that looked too new for these roads. They introduced themselves as Miss Sharma from the foundation and Dr. Priya, a counselor. They did not smile too widely or speak too loudly, which Rani liked immediately. Ms. Sharma unfolded a map on the hood of the truck and showed Rani the pota 2 kilometers down the slope, closer to the school bus route, with space for a kitchen garden and a room for grandmother. "Construction starts in 4 days," she said. "We'll need your approval on the final plan." Rani stared at the neat squares and lines that would become walls and windows and a life she had never dared to sketch even in her dreams. Dr. Priya asked gentle questions. Did she want to finish class 12 in the village school or move to Delhi earlier for bridge classes? Would grandmother come with her, or stay until the house was ready? Did she have any fears about cities? About uniforms? About being the only girl with calluses on her hands and frostbite scars on her toes? Rani answered in short sentences at first, then longer ones. She admitted she was terrified of elevators, that she had never tasted pizza, that she sometimes still woke up reaching for the stick to chase leopards away from the goats that were no longer hers. Dr. Priya wrote nothing down, just listened until Rani's voice cracked and the tears came without permission. When they left, they gave her a phone, a simple, sturdy, already charged. Aarav's number was saved as Anna because Rani had once called him Anna in her feverish mountain dialect, meaning elder brother, and he had liked it. That evening she stared at the screen for an hour before typing her first message. Thank you, Anna. The house has my grandmother's name on it too? The reply came within seconds. It has both your names, and a room with southern windows for her roses. Build whatever life you want. Rani, the mountain kept you alive, now the world will too. Winter turned to early spring. The foundation for the new house rose faster than gossip. Men from the village who once looked through Rani now greeted her with folded hands. Some brought sacks of rajma as donations. Others asked if the billionaire needed workers. Rani turned no one away, but she kept her distance. She had learned early that gratitude can curdle into expectation. She visited the site every afternoon after school, carrying tea in a steel flask for the masons. She learned words like rebar and load-bearing and plumbing rough-in. She insisted the kitchen have a high shelf so grandmother wouldn't have to bend, and that the bathroom door open outward in case someone fainted inside. Old mountain wisdom. The foreman, a man from Kullu with a silver tooth, started calling her Madam Engineer. One day Aarav came himself in no helicopter, just a dusty Fortuner that looked embarrassed on the narrow path. He wore a simple kurta and carried a cloth bag. The entire village pretended not to stare while staring very hard. He walked straight to Rani, who was covered in lime dust, and bowed his head the way villagers do to elders. I promised I'd see the mountains with my own feet one day, he said, not half dead. He spent the afternoon helping lay bricks, refusing the chair someone ran to fetch. Children trailed him asking if he really owned airplanes. He answered every question seriously. When the sun set, he and Rani sat on the unfinished veranda sharing roasted corn. I have a confession, he said quietly. That night on the mountain a broken bar I wasn't just lost, I was running, from boardrooms, from people who measure worth in commas. I thought if I disappeared, maybe the noise would stop. He turned the cob of corn in his hands. You dragged me back to life with frozen fingers and half a bowl of dal. I will never know how to repay that. Rani looked toward the snow peaks glowing pink in the last light. Then don't repay, she said. Just make sure no other girl has to choose between a stranger's life and firewood for her grandmother. He was quiet for a long time. Then he reached into the cloth bag and took out a small wooden box. Inside was a silver anklet, thin and plain, the kind mountain brides wear. Engraved on the inside were two words in Devanagari, a currency section, a currency diaresis, a yen, a currency macron, a currency micro, a currency 3/4, a currency broken bar, a currency degrees, a currency 3/4, a currency diaresis, a yen. A thank you, Rani. I can't wear this to school, she laughed, eyes suddenly wet. Wear it when you feel small, he said. It will remind you that you once moved a mountain for a stranger. Summer came early that year. On the day Rani left for Delhi, half the village walked with her to the bus stop. Grandmother stayed behind in the new house that smelled of fresh plaster and marigolds. Rani wore the uniform they had given her, a crisp white shirt, navy skirt, shoes that didn't have holes. The anklet was hidden beneath her sock, cool against her skin. As the bus lurched down the winding road, she pressed her forehead to the window and watched the mountain shrink. She was terrified. She was furious at how much she already missed the smell of pine smoke. She was 17, and the world was suddenly too large, but every time the bus hit a pothole, the anklet tapped gently against her ankle bone like a heartbeat, and she remembered the boy who had once been dying in the snow. and the girl who refused to walk past him. The mountains disappeared behind a bend. Ahead lay Delhi's heat and noise and millions of people who had never gone to bed hungry. Rani closed her eyes, took the deepest breath she had ever taken, and whispered the only promise that mattered, "I'm not done yet."